So thanks so much. I have maybe 10, 15 minutes to tell you what I'm doing here. Okay, let me put it this way. So yesterday, I presented the troublemaker side of me. But then today, you'll see the other side, which is not only thinking the alternative to the status quo, but doing something about it. And doing something as if the state doesn't exist, that you are the only one that matters, you know. So when I started teaching in '95, I was shocked about how few Africans we had in the profession. And also, in my earlier work, I was also shocked on how Africa was actually to some degree misrepresented. Particularly, I mean, the political science literature, where there are a lot of assumptions that were made, and but then there's very little kind of response from the academic world on the continent, because the universities, as I said, were mostly teaching factories. You know, they just teach classes, 2,000 people, 500 people. There is no systematic research culture. So I wanted to do something about it. So first, I started very small. So I set up a research center in 2004. Everybody thought it was crazy because you are junior faculty. Why would you care? Just try to get by. But I was not born that way, unfortunately. So I decided to set up a research center. It's very small, with $5,000, and because that's all NYU had for me. And then with $5,000, I organized a summer school, and then I was able to identify some promising, research assistant. And then together we applied for a grant. We got Afrobarometer grant, $8,000. Then we say, okay, let's use 30% to actually do the work. No, more than 30%. Use some part of it, because I don't want to run into trouble here. It was way back still, We used part of it to actually do this Afrobarometer survey. The rest, I set up an empirical political economic research center. And I set up a master's program right away so that I can grow the pipeline of research assistants. It went very, very well. So some of the students from this program are now at the African Development Bank, at, finished their PhD. In Europe, like faculty and so on. But it's all Francophone, and it was very ad hoc. So I turned this into an university. So that's how the African School of Economics was, first of all, announced in 2011. And how? Well, I was at NYU, very happy, and Princeton came along and said, you want to move to Princeton University? And I went, oh, that's nice. Do you know what it's going to take for me to move to Princeton University? Pay for my university that I'm going to set up, And they did, because, I mean, it was very interesting because I could have asked for doubling salary, 20,000 research assistant for my other, and I said, no, university, that's it. So when you focus your demand, you get what you want. So obviously, it's not 20,000 research assistant, but you see what I mean, right? So I moved to Princeton. Then I announced it. 2014, African School of Economics was open. And the vision was clearly research. From the beginning, we don't deserve second best. Particularly when it comes to the continent, we have to be at the frontier. That's one. But then this will trickle down to quality education. In terms of training, will be informed. And then innovation, push for innovation in public and private sector. And I'm going to give some example in a second. So, and the assumptions, was that the most important research on Africa has to be done in large part and produced and owned by African scholars. Now, the critical mass of talent needed to transform the continent has to happen here on the continent. So there were basically three approaches, and it has evolved over time. The approaches that I'm going to describe to you are not just came overnight. At the beginning, it was a degree program. And interestingly, I started with master's, moved to undergraduate, now PhD. So typically, you start undergraduate, master's, and then PhD. But because I started with research initiative, so I needed support for research right away. I needed to, the institution to be research-driven right away. So I started with a master's degree and created 2 masters, mathematics, economics, statistics, very inclusive. We have admission, there are people in hardcore math, and people in statistics, people also in economics. What is interesting is that because of the nature of a program, you have a lot of, kind of interaction between people, between students in different, with different background. Like for instance, the student in math, they have no economics knowledge, and then they will thrive in math classes, they'll struggle in economics, but then by working as a group, the one with background in economics will basically positively influence the one in mathematics and vice versa. So we started this in Benin, and the results were really spectacular. Like for instance, from the first cohorts, we have students from that cohort who are now faculty at New York University, faculty at Dartmouth, World Bank, IMF, and so on. Because the curriculum was super innovative. Basically is few classes, 26 for the whole program, but math, and math. It doesn't matter where you come from. If you have history major, you are still in, because it's about how much progress you make. It's not about grade, especially given that you'll be tutored by your math classmates, and you'll give them you'll help them improve in the substantive topic. The second component is African history. So there is a strong history component. And the third big is research experience. So every student in the program are part of a research project. And then there are specialties like development economics, international economics, maybe IO or labor sometimes, But then the tools that you have get you to be very competent in solving that where you don't have necessary expertise, because you have ways to actually capture the essence. So now, because of the success of the program, we started expanding. Now we have campus in Benin and Côte d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and then Zanzibar. But then we try to also reach out to African diaspora. So we have a joint degree master's program with Hunter College, so that we can kind of help improve diversity in admission program at Hunter College. So I was able to apply for and got some fellowship for some students. And as a result, interestingly, I got students from Colombia, students from Dominican Republic, who are ASC students, So I should also add that because of the reputation of the program, we have non-Africans students, like Julio, Julio is an alumni of ASC. We have another student from Wisconsin, Madison, who came, and he's now a business, professional in the US. So now the second component that we have developed over time is in art and athletics. So because of the centrality of culture and history in the program, we have, when we opened ASC Nigeria, we have ASC Arts. So we organize a lot of events with people in performing arts and Nollywood and writers and so on. And it's really, really exciting because, first of all, it helped build build a community on campus that's very knowledgeable, very informed about Africa, which is great. Now, but then we are going to be, the next big development of ASC will be in the arts. Because, for instance, we'll have a lot of documentaries. I previewed one of the film like yesterday. There'll be more of that. And we might have, in fact, a film studio in partnership with Nollywood in Nigeria so that we can vibrantly, continuously tell the African story. And then ASC athletics, you might not know this, but I'm a massive, massive football fan. So I mean, like, I don't look at like an athlete, but my mind is athletic, So anyway, so we set up ASC athletics in Madrid, which is data science and sports. So we'll be training in data science, in communication, in economics and marketing, students from sports academies. So in my hotel, I had Senegal and Algeria playing here for the African championships, and I make some connections, so we might become clients. So we might, in fact, be running a stadium and sports academy in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. Negotiation is underway. Now, the most important part of my presentation will be the new initiative, which is Princeton African School of Economics Research Hub. So what happened when we set up the Nigerian campus is to expand to sciences and engineering. So economics, finance, yes. Public policy, yes. But then we need sciences, we need engineering. So those programs will become key components of the training. But then I thought about setting up a Max Planck Institute model across a number of countries on the continent, which means a group of 10 to 20 people in various disciplines who will be just dedicated to do research at the highest level and publish. And then they will be, like we did for the initial research institute, they will be shaping the training program. I mean, they will hire faculty who will be mostly teaching faculty, but the member of the PACER Hub will be shaping the curriculum and all shaping the research, so that the classes that we teach are not actually very research informed. So the 4 areas that the PACER Hub will cover is economics, particularly macro, micro, political economy, science, engineering, biotech, geoscience, climate change, mathematics, math, data science and AI, arts, history, and philosophy. All this will be represented. So now the new development, which is super exciting, if I can, oh my God, okay, no? I need some help here. I don't know what I should. Okay, so okay, I don't know. So let me start talking about it briefly. This is actually, oh yeah, okay, that's good. This is a development that came up like for the past month. This is what happened when you are by yourself and I have a bunch of questions to answer. Given where things are at ASC, given the international climate on support for research, I said I need to turn the research hub into startups. I need to create business, research-driven, innovation-driven research as part of the mission of. But then the way it's going to work will be have startups that have that cross across disciplines. So one good example is what I call, we are already in negotiation with several foundations or funding agencies. It's called the Agricultural Institute. So it's agriculture and biotech, but culture and history. So it will have three components. The first component will be, very applied but strong research in biotech and agriculture. And it happens that my hometown had one of the oldest research centers set up in 1922 in palm oil. So if you see palm tree in Thailand, chances are that it come from my hometown, because they were, it was set up by France and had been very, very strong. So we want to use this culture of research that exists to set up this. So the second component, and this is probably the most unique and interesting, is the cultural space that the Minister of Tourism has talked about. So when you meet the minister for less than an hour, and then he can express your vision even more than you do, then I think you are doing something good. So what is this is that we will create a space, a physical space, which is highly digitized, where we are with several components. One component is local social history. Like what I'm going to talk about later today on intergenerational mobility, the data that come from that will be represented graphically in integrating all the informations so that we can know, for instance, better about those societies 2 centuries ago and how they have evolved. The kind of nodes, the kind of connections that made the society move this way as opposed to that way. There is so much information about learning about social mobility the way I did, using individual level data, that it's a waste to just write a couple of papers with it. You need to put it in a museum that will be interactive, that will be highly interactive, where several questions can be asked with the data and answered instantaneously. So now I moved this vision, this project, to Nigeria. We did a similar project. And then, the goal is to do it in 30 African countries, so that in each of those countries, for instance, you have the cultural space that will be filled with the social history, but not just broad social history written in history book by explorers, but social history based on people who live there from generation to generation. And then for an African, this is great because it's a way to formalize the speaking to ancestors narrative. You see what I mean? Because then it's about, when you read it, you can say, okay, tell me what your grandfather or your great-great-grandfather would have done or said. But yeah, I know because I have the data that I simulate to some degree to make the ancestors speak. Come on, this is great. Okay, so in Benin, okay, 5 minutes. In Benin, I'm fascinated by this guy. He's the King Glele. He's the next to last king. So we are not going to completely ignore political history, but then some are super interesting. King Glele, I find out he's extended with Bismarck in 1885, where this guy was giving instruction to Chancellor Bismarck about how he should get his German who want to do business in Benin to behave. It was very powerful. I can share that with you. But then he's also an artist. The most sophisticated musical genre in Benin was created by King Glele. And then he's so innovative. He moved everything from the old palace to stay in my hometown, like Not that he was anticipating that. I would love it, but in any case, he was 1 kilometer away from my hometown. He set up the training center of the Amazons there. I mean, like the female warriors there. And then he also developed a community of artists and people in sculpture, in painting and stuff. So he made the place artistically advanced, and extremely sophisticated. I want, for instance, to talk about, this is a picture of the all-female army that, that existed from 17th century, 18th century to late 19th century. So there will be a space for that, a space for religion as well, a space for maybe cuisine and other cultural aspects. But then it's not going to be, here are some stuff, come and see. It will be something which is very kind of digital, but at the same time, a lot of interaction. You can ask questions. You can also add, particularly, for instance, for the social history part. So I know who went to school. I know their neighbors, but not much else. Then people can come in and say, oh, you forgot about my uncle. Okay, oh, yeah, okay, put him there. And then we can keep expanding the sample into a point where we can completely, to some degree, recreate those societies across centuries, So, and, the vision of the model started in Zainado, my hometown, but then it's going to be brought to Zanzibar. Yeah. So the second part is ecotourism. So we want a place where people do biotech research and stuff, but then you have to take advantage of the environment that exists. So some kind of investment in landscaping, in forestry, maintenance, whatever it is, can take place so that people interested in seeing animals, they can also see people, So you see the lion? Okay, let me tell you about my grandfather, Look at both, Okay. Yeah, I hate the idea that people just come to Africa and say, I'm going here to see lions. Yeah, okay. No. But anyway, but then, I want to see the trees, whatever. That's good. I will see the trees. But guess what? There is something else, Anyway, okay. So this is, okay, I'm sorry. So the initial hubs, and this initiative will happen in several countries: Morocco, South Africa, Nigeria, Zanzibar are the places that where we can start. We are very advanced in Morocco, working with Mohammed VI Polytechnic, and in Nigeria as well, particularly because it's the place for ASC Arts, and Zanzibar because of the enthusiasm and support for the local government. I mean, it could be that the cultural space happened here before it happened anywhere else, because I saw the minister. He told me, after your meeting yesterday, I talked to one foundation, not to be named, and then they want to see you. I said, what? Anyway, so it's good. I mean, I cannot be happier. So to finish, I'm going to talk about the fact that one of the things that we also want to do at ASC is, I'm sorry, is there a way to do this? There are two other things that we want to do. Besides the business, besides the research, we are going to set up what we call Growth Advisory Unit. Will be a group of people who will have thought about possible solutions for issues in several countries and be able to advise with hardcore analysis and data governments, So, and then the second part is also a pipeline program. I think I mentioned that yesterday with a colleague from IGC, which is we are going to sort of train in political economy, particularly individuals who have done public policy masters elsewhere, and try to channel them to government, particularly local governments, and build a network around them so that they can actually, and among those people, there will be a group of people in science and engineering because I think local government capacity requires not just lawyers and economists, they also require people who actually, who are scientists, civil engineering, biological engineering, chemical engineering, and so on. And I think I mentioned yesterday the Chinese model, where the action is taking place at local level, innovation is taking place at local level, and in this, I should not mention that the Growth Advisory Unit will also be a place where you not only give advice to government, you also support government in finding investors for projects. Because we can do market research, we can do many things, so that they don't have to rely on Boston Consulting Group or Deloitte to be able to identify potential investors. We can help them much cheaper. So anyway, so and this is already happening. Now, I'm going to finish by saying that I haven't talked much about the history of ASC, but I take 2 minutes to say. So over 9 years, particularly in Benin, we place 80 students in PhD program, some of the top, and I mentioned the accomplishment, the placement record, and that's one. But then we develop international reputation in several key areas. For instance, in political economy, it's fair to say that institutional experimentation, experimenting with institutions, it's something that grew out of ASC Benin, and now it become a thing, that others do. And then the applied micro, the historical applied micro that I will talk about this afternoon, later today, is also something that started at ASC 10 years ago and is developing. And now I'm happy that this is more than a research project. It will be an industry, where we can actually sort of properly, I wanted to say cook, but it looked so demeaning. We're going to sort of represent the local history using microdata in a way that's really powerful, that can be communicated. And that also represents the true local history as much as possible, because it's not based on impression of others who show up, it's based on individuals who live there, And then what is interesting, this history will keep being developed, because individuals who participate into the interactive nature of the museum will be adding names and people that they know, people from their family, and so on, so that we can keep building the history, the local history. And then let alone the fact that students from the community will come and watch and participate, and there is no better way to actually get them properly educated on local history. If you count the museum often, you basically do not need to actually take a local history lesson, because it's there, visual, and it's something that you live. Anyway, so that's basically the vision. To summarize, is training program, research program, startups, and then we'll have pipelines for governments, and maybe even for the business sector. You see what I mean? We can have a relationship with the business sector so that we train some of their managers for them, in a way that help them to navigate the environment better, And then the Growth Advisory Unit, which I think will be great. But then all this will be also connected to research. Like the Growth Advisory Unit will not be just there to get, consulting fee from whomever. It's going to be linked to people who are interested in the question, so that we can use whatever funding that we have out of the consulting, out of a business, we use it to cover research expenses. So we don't need to be highly dependent on foundations and, on now defunct USAID and others. We can actually have an internal system of internal system of financing research, contributing to local development, contributing to human capital, because it's a relatively closed system of research, funding, and social impact. Anyway, thank you very much.